you to our webinar on DocLink, a All-Talk product that integrates the Sage 100, Sage 500, and other Sage products. And with me today will be Mark Whitbeck, who will handle the presentation part and give us all the information about the product with more hands-on information about the item. A couple housekeeping items. One, the event is being recorded. Two, use the chat box to ask any questions about the product or the presentation, and we will get those answered at the end of the presentation. So again, use the chat box for that. You will all be muted during the presentation, and then you can unmute yourself after the presentation if you want to verbally ask a question versus using the chat box. And then on the webinar for ourselves today, we have Betsy Frank is on the event with me from my office at Martin Associates, and Lauren Wynn and Mark Whitbeck is on, or Whitbeck is on from Alltech. So with that, I will hand it over to Mark and let you take it from here. Thanks, Mark.
Great, thanks, Kevin. Hello, and welcome everybody to our presentation to Go Digital with DocLink. Today we're going to talk about how leveraging DocLink can help you and your organization navigate through potentially enormous amount of data entering and leaving your business every day. We'll also talk about how that is relevant to solving each of your department's problems. Right, there we go. So we live in a world of instant access. For example, I could be traveling in a new city, find a restaurant that serves Thai food, check reviews on the menu, book a table, get directions, all within minutes from my phone. And that's not really even that surprising. It's just what we all expect. So why is it so hard to find anything at your office? It really should be the same, right? When we get to the office, it's just a totally different story. Many of us, our expectations have been severely lower when it comes to finding critical data that would help us make decisions and complete the tasks at hand. There's reasons that it's hard to find something within our organizations. For one thing, not all information comes to us in a format that's easily tracked, and not everything is stored in a database that can be sliced and diced up. We still communicate with business partners, customers via documents. Some of those documents are still paper, believe it or not. In our world, that's kind of crazy. But even when you're using digital documents, you still have the ability to track the communication, store its content in a manner that's meaningful. So now think to yourselves, majority of you are probably using file cabinets. If you've taken the step to go paperless, you might be using a network share. Finding documents within our companies can get complicated. And so if you think about what you're using today, maybe consider that may not be the best options to be using. So maybe we have filing cabinets, network share, but with software like DocLink, you have really greater control over documents. You have greater visibility and efficiency over handling, processing those documents. So these are all just examples of business problems we face. One, the silos of business data and documents, whether electronic and paper, where is everything? What visibility do you really have to those documents? There might be inefficient workflows. And when we talk about workflows, those are really just business processes. How long does it take to get anything done? We have lack of visibility, security, and compliance. Are your documents secure? HR documents, are they confidential to the majority of the employees looking at documents? Can you produce documents for your auditors? Are those easy to get, or are we pulling boxes, filing through them with our fingers, pulling them out for our auditors, and then putting those filings back in their cabinets? That takes time and money. Operational inefficiencies. How many delays have you experienced during storage, transport, misfilings, etc.? The inability to maximize profits. So hard costs include storage, supplies, postage, etc. But there's also cost avoidance to look out for and time savings as well. So a couple simple questions to ask yourself as you might need a solution such as DocLink. Does your current system require a lot of touching, moving, and filing of documents? Are you losing documents? Can you put a hand on those documents in a timely fashion? What happens when a customer calls asking for those documents? Is it hard to find, hard to get access to? What happens when you need to recreate them? There's all a cost associated with that. Is your approval process manual and inefficient? What does it take to get a document approved? How does a document arrive in your organization? This is a huge benefit of DocLink and its ERP integration, which allows for a single point of entry. How much time do you waste on data entry and filing? The moment a person touches a document, errors can start happening. We are human after all. Would you like to reduce keystrokes and the frequency of mistakes? What could your business do with its freed up time? So all questions that we need to ask ourselves when thinking about a solution like this. All right, so an intro into DocLink. What really is DocLink from a high level standpoint? We really have to categorize these in 5 different components. So the first is capture. So really bringing in documents. It could be, depending on your business needs, a print capture or CR. It might be barcode, XML import, email import. There's all these different methods of bringing in documents to one place, and DocLink can help with that. Search and retrieve. So once we capture those documents into DocLink, we need to find them easily and quickly at some later point. So those documents could be from any device from within the DocLink repository, and we can search and retrieve using all of those. It might be a desktop app, a web app, mobile, you name it, we can do all of that. The workflow is the third component. So when we think of workflow, we're thinking of a business process and automating that. So we're thinking of an approval process. That's where workflow comes into play. Or we can use automation to determine the values of a property in a document and route those accordingly without any manual touching of the documents. When we talk about automated delivery, we're thinking of the output. So bringing documents in is capture, automated delivery is output. So imagine a purchase order that gets automatically captured into DocLink. We read that metadata and then email that purchase order out to a vendor. We're also going to grab the supporting documents that go along with it, a W-9, a quote, something like that, that would be sent out to the vendor linking. Most systems can do email, but we're doing automated delivery, so no human intervention. In addition to those standard features of document management, DocLink also offers what we call smart forms or configurable windows. This can be used to enhance and personalize the way DocLink works for you and your processes. Any way you want to use it, DocLink can work with any document, any process, anywhere. A smart form could be anything from creating a purchase requisition, an expense report, a new vendor request. So anything that you're currently doing on paper today, or maybe even in Excel, that can be translated into a DocLink smart form. So Martin Associates is mainly Sage 100 focused, but we can also integrate with other Sage products. So that could be Sage 500, Sage 300, Intact Enterprise Management, those cloud offerings that Sage has. And we're going to be able to integrate with all those offerings. Okay. So let's talk about search and retrieval for just a second. This is actual data found from PricewaterhouseCoopers. So it's kind of crazy to think that just to file a document costs about $20. So that's from end to end when we first get a document in to processing, the approval, the time spent. All that data was sliced and diced to come up with that $20 figure. To retrieve a document, so just finding it in a filing cabinet, maybe their filing cabinet's often offsite storage. You got to pay somebody to go retrieve that data for you, bring it in, and then you got to pay them to actually refile it back for you. It's kind of crazy. And then $220 to actually recreate a document, which is absolutely insane to me. So the ROI is real, obvious, and very measurable here. So how much time do you spend searching for documents, filing, refiling, and what if your documents get lost or misplaced and need to be recreated? The cost of touching documents is completely unnecessary, and there's definitely a better use of staff time and your resources than to file, retrieve, recreate documents. DocLink adds higher value to each task in your business process, and we can liberate that wasted time and processes for your team. So search and retrieval, we're talking about that. Some companies are only looking for an electronic filing cabinet, and that's a really good solution to start. This adds benefits, rich, powerful, flexible search criteria, ease of use, quick access to documents for saving time, filing, retrieving. We can use drill down, searching, a basic OCR full text functionality. And you can search documents via the web and mobile app. So any document, any process, anywhere. And all that's wrapped around with security. So only users that need to see those particular documents can see them. So at this point, I'd like to show you via an actual live demo of our product for search and retrieval. Bear with me here for 1 second while I switch over to my desktop here. And I'm going to go ahead and log into our DocLink web client. All right, so this is the web client we can see. We can access this from anywhere. I'm just accessing it via web browser. So your typical Internet Explorer, Firefox, Chrome, whatever you want to use, we can do that and access documents from anywhere, not just on inside the office. Okay, I'm going to just search using my accounts payable person, Jane, and log in. The first thing we notice is it's configurable for her. So Jane is logged in. We can use advanced search functionality. So any document types we want to give Jane access to, then we can do that. So she only has access to a handful. Even though this is about 20 different document types that we can search on, there may be 100 different document types in the system, but she does not have access to those. So we can do other things too. So search by company. However many companies you have in Sage, DocLink can be configured to be set up that way. And we can delineate what companies that particular user has access to. Maybe we only want them to have access to 1 out of 3 or 5 companies. We can do that. We can give them access via document types and properties as well. We can do other cool search features like save searches. So if I want to search for all AP invoices for 2017, we can save a search that does that. DocLink changes the search criteria immediately. And then when we click on search, we can go out and locate all those invoices from 2017. This particular example, I love to use for an auditor. We can take any document or a group of documents. We can highlight all of them. Let's say we just need to search a couple, but we can actually grab all of them and download them in a packet of documents for that auditor. Now, this is what an auditor might see. They would see the image itself. They're going to see all the system data of that document, the origination, or in other words, where it came from. So manual entry, OCR, a batch import process of some sort. We're going to see indexed values of that document. So any of these properties are actually searchable. If I need to find that exact invoice number 7845, that's exactly how I search it, and this is exactly what I would expect to see. Okay. From the going back to that auditor example, so we can take all the invoices from 2017 that they request, we download them, we can give them to the auditor via USB drive. They take those groups of documents, load them up within DocLink. They can see all the audit history related to those documents, so any views, any GL data entries, approvals, so on and so forth. They're going to see all that. And when they're done, there's no refiling. It's simply they just can delete the documents with the version of DocLink that they are looking at documents, and they're on their way. So think of the time savings of not having to re-enter or refile those invoices back to that filing cabinet. A couple other options for searching and retrieval. We have what we call full text search. So this is going to work for documents like contracts, legal documents, where we can simply just pull all the data from a single document. So not indexed values like we would think for invoices or purchase orders, but something like a 30 to 50 page contract that there's nothing specific to give meaning to that document. So we can just pull all the data from that. So I just type in the word agreement, and we're going to do similar to what Google does on the internet and basically crawl all the documents for all the data. When I type the word agreement, it finds that document. I can click on that document to look it up and find it. So there's lots of different ways of searching and retrieving documents, whatever works for the different document types and permissions that we have available to us within DocLink. Okay, so let's go back and we'll talk a little bit more about other features and functionalities with DocLink. All right, so streamlining the AP invoice approvals and entry. Let's talk a little bit more about that. So there's three major benefits in using DocLink to automate the accounts payable processes. The ability to provide self-service document access, timely approvals from anywhere, and the elimination of filing and minimizing of tedious data entry. Ultimately, these contribute to a huge win for the streamlined approvals. Users and approvers can be really anywhere. They could be out in the field on their mobile device, and we can approve documents that way. There's no bottlenecking of documents, taking advantage of early pay discounts, which is, again, another way of saving money. So an AP win, talking a little bit more about those streamlined approvals. At the end of it all, the greatest AP win is those streamlined approvals. We can improve that visibility of documents. Approvers can approve, deny, add notes to invoices. We can enter and approve GL account codes with ease. We use what we call a GL distribution stamp. So instead of using an actual rubber stamp to put that GL code on the document, or writing it on there, we can do all that digitally, and then that data is going to be able to seamlessly move from DocLink into Sage to create that transaction. We can view supporting documents from anywhere. So supporting documents might be looking at a check review workflow, looking at the check, and the supporting documents will be all those invoices linking to those checks. We can do that from anywhere. The smart client, the web app, the mobile device. Users can delegate workflows. So if they're out of the office on vacation, but we still need to do approvals for business is still running, we can delegate our work to another user. We can automate the process to reduce human error. So receiving supplier invoices in any form, assigning them to an AP processor queue, electronically authorize those invoices, digitally signing them. We'll take a look at that in a little bit. These are really just a tip of the iceberg as common business issues that plague organizations today, and we're really providing really trying to compel them to consider document management. All right, so let's look at another quick peek here. So invoice processing, approval, and entry. What does that look like? Let's go back to our same web client here. What I'm going to do is instead, I'm going to log out from Jane, our AP person. I'm going to log in as my CFO now. So as our CFO, I can then access workflows. So I'm going to go to my CFO workflow. As we can see here, I only have access to that particular workflow and the statuses that link to it. I now don't have access to accounts payable. I don't have access to sales, receiving, so on and so forth. Only what's relevant to me at this point I can see. So I see here I have documents that are in my workflow status. There's a couple documents that have been flagged for priority, so maybe I want to take care of those first. I'm going to double click on this AP invoice here. This is marked as priority. And over here, we have the ability to approve or deny documents. As I approve via those notes, this is a digital signature that's based on my login information. My login information is based on permissions. So it's really authenticating that user based on what we're able to do, so I can tell that my CFO is my CFO and they're able to approve these invoices. If I wanted to deny, I can do that as well. It's going to look similar. Or it's going to be red instead of green, of course. What's also nice about DocLink is we can limit the moving of documents based on these notes. So let's say I only deny it, but I accidentally sent to my approved status. DocLink's actually not going to let me do that because it says, if and only if I approve the document, then I can send to the approved status. And same thing goes for denied. I could deny a document and send it to approved. You can also do other things like put on info notes. So something like please review this document. I don't necessarily want to approve nor deny, but I want someone else to review it for me because maybe something doesn't quite look right. Maybe my iPods are a different unit price. Maybe we negotiated $250 versus $275, and I don't like what I see here. So I can do that as well. When I'm done with that approval process, that's all I do. I can simply then send to approved, and then I'm done. The next document in the line comes up for my approval, so I can handle that accordingly, and then we can move on with our process. Now, you may not be living in DocLink 100% of the time, so we need to send a notification to those users so they know how to that they need to approve something. So in this case, we're just going to use that CFO example again. As documents flow into the workflow for them, we can send notifications for the CFO. In this case, we can see something like a document for review. We can see this, our CFO has 10 documents waiting for them. 10 are overdue because they've been sitting there for a while, and 3 are priority. From here, we can actually do other cool things. Let's say we're out in the field, we're maybe actually on vacation, but we're the only approver that is required to approve at this point. We can actually approve or deny documents directly from email. So I can see, in this case, an AP invoice. I can double click and look at it. I can see the GL codings that are on it. And I can approve or deny directly using these links. By clicking that approve or deny link, I'm going to send the document to that either approved or denied workflow status. And I'm going to add a note saying that I did it. So we're authenticating the user just by clicking a link in the email. Pretty slick deal. From that point, our AP users can take the document from there. Or maybe we take it one step further, we do a batch import. So once I send that document to approved, DocLink can just take over and say, I have all these documents, I have every piece of information I need, and I'm going to just batch that data directly into Sage 100, Sage 500, Sage 300, whatever we do, or whatever ERP we're using, batch that data in. So again, reducing the manual data entry points to save some time for our AP so they can do more meaningful stuff versus just data entry. Okay. All right, so let's continue on. So extending DocLink across the enterprise. We've really only talked about the AP process at this point, but DocLink really is so much more than that. AP is really used as the starting point to get your feet wet, and it's really the low-hanging fruit in an enterprise, reducing paper. So think about invoices coming in, we can make them electronic, saving postage, saving envelopes, so on and so forth. All right. So we're thinking about document management enterprise-wide. You know, what's everything that can be made better via document management? It really just solves all AP problems and beyond. Customer service, human resources, legal, sales, marketing. We touched on a few of those components, but yeah, enterprise-wide solution here. So talking about more about processes in general, purchase requisitions, check requests, expense reports, credit card processing, and HR. So not necessarily just invoices and approving them and that automation that goes along with it. There's a lot of different components that we can process improvements with DocLink. When we think about that, we can think about smart forms. And we talked about smart forms just briefly, but what is it in depth? And it's a DocLink window that can be used for creating new documents, indexing, retrieving, moving them throughout the enterprise. A couple examples, and we'll look at these in a live demo, the ones that are highlighted here. So each are onboarding smart form. What that might be is we get new employees. There's a lot of paperwork that goes along with HR. How can we streamline that and maybe just check boxes saying, hey, this new employee needs a key card, they need a new phone, a laptop, so on and so forth. So a smart form could do that, checking boxes to make sure that new employee has been onboarded correctly. An expense report processing. We actually use this internally at Alltech. So whenever we create an expense report, people go on the road, they can use mobile capture of the receipts that they take, upload those automatically as line item expenses. We can actually, our employees code our own expense reports because we can, based on categories like flight, hotel, meals, entertainment, those all are categorized to a particular GL code, which saves our accounts payable person a lot of time and effort. Purchase requisitions is another great example. We can actually link up with the Sage 100 data behind the scenes. So that purchase requisition can be actually created in DocLink and then moved around to create approvals before it's sent back to maybe a purchasing manager for that actual purchase. And along with that, we can create some automation to then send out those purchase requisitions to the actual vendor so they can fulfill those purchases for us. So looking into the mobile device a little bit more, what that might look like. It's a little bit hard to show this in a real life scenario. Screenshots tend to be a pretty good method of doing this. We can actually do captures of images. So if I click on that capture option, we can do something like a receipt or site photo. We're going to go through the process of being able to add a page or multiple pages if we need to. In this case, I'm just going to add a flight receipt from Delta. So we can actually use our camera on our mobile device to take a picture of that. If I had other pages, I could snap pictures of page 2, page 3 if I needed to. I'm going to minimally index that document that makes sense for it. So in this case, we have our company that fills in automatically. Maybe the date fills in also. Our name is going to fill in based on login information as well. So already with just logging in, we're filling out data that we already know. So we're really just filling the amount, what it is, so a Delta flight, and then we're done. If we had other documents to upload, we could say yes. In this case, we're just going to say no. We don't have any other documents to do. All right, so I'm going to jump over and going to do another quick demo for you guys for the smartphone toolkit, what that looks like. Go back to our web client here. I'm going to go ahead and log out. We're going to log back in as Jane. And I think she has a couple smart forms we can start out with. So smart forms, again, come at the top of our search and retrieval. Whatever we have access to, we're going to go to accounting forms. So here's a purchase requisition form as an example here. So any forms I have access to, we can click the drop-down link. We can see access to those. So purchase requisition is my first example. To initiate a smart form, I click on Start, and all the data that applies to me fills in automatically. It might be an auto-incremented PO requisition number, the company that we're in, the requester, which is based on login information, our date, what it might be, so service, purchase, whatever we want to fill in there. These are completely configurable from start to finish. We can build these from scratch. We can build these based on your specs, and we can also link it to your ERP system. So vendor information, we might want to fill that in. I'm just going to pick the first one here. So vendor information might fill in based on my what I picked for my drop-down list. Let's go ahead and pick a better one here. All right. So as I go through this, I can fill in item information maybe. That makes sense for that vendor information. I can go through this just like I would create a purchase requisition on paper via Excel. DocLink can really mimic that process and create a seamless profile for our purchase requisitions as we continue that process. Since I'm here in accounting forms, we can jump over and do an expense report. So the look and feel is really the same. All of the logic behind the scenes is really reproducible within these different forms. It's just a different look and feel of it. In this case, I'm using a different employee, Roger, who is maybe taking a trip. So we can say trip and start adding new documents in here. So in this case, we can add something like a travel doc. Maybe that's a flight. As I put in that travel category, we can see that the account code and the account name auto-populated based on that. I can just tab through these values, and I can put in the flight, maybe it was $300. I can also add attachments based on what I'm doing. So maybe I snap a picture of my flight. I can attach documents for that, upload those, and then link them individually per line item. We can also do calculations here. So let's say mileage is a pretty common one. If I type in mileage here, I can then be initiated by adding mileage at 51 cents per mile. So let's say I drove 100 miles. DocLink's going to do an automated calculation of 54 cents per mile. And now our total amount is $54. And we're going to do some calculations to calculate those line items up. And our expense report amount is now $354. So you can see the process of going through line items, those subtotals, totals for the expense report. This is actually going to flow through. So once I click on create, we're going to create an expense report. Those line items are going to be supporting documents. So my approver can go in and look at those, see, yeah, this receipt matches with this flight. This receipt matches with a hotel bill, so on and so forth. They can easily then, and now we can piece it all together, right? Go to our emails that are on our mobile device, go into the DocLink mobile app, click approve, send it on to accounts payable, and we can actually pay our employees very, very quickly. I think our internal turnaround time is maybe 2 days. If I send in an expense report on Monday, I know I'm getting an electronic payment on Thursday. Okay. Last component here, we're just going to say no here. Go to our HR smart form real quick. Just leave that page. So HR onboarding, interdepartmental changes, we can do anything like that. Wherever the data is accessible, we can do that. So find a name of the employee from a lookup again. We can go back into the Sage 100 employee list, find our CFO or Roger, that user we were using previously. We can send them to a department, so maybe they're in IT or HR or finance, wherever they might be. Add that. What happens? So sick, is it a personal day? They got maternity leave? Then we can do that, create that type of HR form. So if you think piece all together, really the possibilities are endless for these forms. And again, like I said, we can build these from scratch, whatever you want, pulling the data from all these different places. Okay. So let's go back. We'll finish our slideshow here real quick, and then we'll open it up for questions. So talked about smart forms, the benefits of that, streamlining the structure of the business process. How, think about how this might change your business processes when we can eliminate paper completely from your organization. Creating those sophisticated forms. Now we're not shuffling paper on our desk, filling those out and wasting time. It's going to fill in a lot of that known data automatically, and we can create that document, send it along for approvals or next steps, whatever that might be. Doing those documents throughout the process. We saw, taking that document from creation to, sending that over to a repository, moving it to a workflow if needed. All that becomes visible. And all this is creating, minimizing data entry, time savings, cost savings. We can do all this without needing an ERP license. So a lot of this comes down to where's the data being entered. We have to go into Sage 100 to enter that data in. Now we're taking an ERP license. Well, now we don't necessarily have to. We can use a minimal footprint web browser to enter this data without actually having to go to the ERP. Okay. Like I said before, it's an enterprise-wide solution. We talked about the HR component to it, filling out personnel request form, onboarding form, certificate, additions into DocLink. All this is going to be able to be managed in one place. Contract management, we talked about that full text search. So being able to manage contracts, we didn't have time to do it, but we can do full version control of those documents. So check in, check out, modifying Word documents, and then routing them around. We'll have a DocuSign integration later this year. So documents could be signed digitally through that DocuSign integration, sent back to us and saved as PDF. Lots of different options here for different situations based on your individual business needs. We understand that everyone's a little bit different, so we want to, a cookie cutter solution isn't going to work for everybody, and that's where DocLink really excels outside of AP automation, going beyond that to the whole enterprise. So, why DocLink? We can, capture paperless Office PDFs. Maybe you're using paperless Office today in Sage 100. DocLink has a unique integration with Sage 100 to grab those PDFs, automatically drop them in the DocLink repository, and then route those around via automation. Storing other important documents for easy access. We saw before, contracts, AP, AR, sales, HR, doesn't really matter. A document is a document is a document. With those documents comes secure access of documents. We want to make sure I don't see some other employees' HR-related documents, so we can secure those through, confidential flags, things like that. Electronic approvals, invoices and coding, and the automated import. We want to touch documents as little as possible, so we can build on the from the entry point of how we get documents in, minimally touch them to the endpoint, and ultimately get them into the ERP system. We want to be able to do that. And ultimately, we want to help fulfill your paperless vision. If you have always wanted to go paperless in the past, you didn't know how to start, maybe your paperless vision was just starting by using network shares. We want to take that to a whole extra level to make sure that we have a secure access point for those documents. All right. So let's finish off here. We'll just open it up for questions. Hopefully that was a good visual for you all to see what DocLink is possible or capable of, and what our possibilities are.
Great, thanks, Mark.
Mhm.
If anybody does have any questions, you can go ahead and unmute your line if you wish and speak them in, or you can put them in the group chat as well if you just want to put them there, and then Betsy and I will be able to read the questions off to Mark. I do have a couple questions myself, Mark. When you look at the mobile device and the mobile solutions, what type of workflow do you see works best for people that are on the road with their phones or their devices and need to scan or record things in as it relates to any documents for their travels or work?
Yeah, so I mean, it really can be anything. The one thing to keep in mind with mobile, we're dealing with a different type of real estate, right? So it's a smaller device, maybe it's 5 inches versus a desktop computer, which is 20 inches. So expense receipts that link to expense reports. Maybe it's a field photo that we're taking a snapshot of goods. Something like that tends to work better than an invoice that we're trying to capture. Really, there's nothing that's of limitation. We just have to think about the real estate on those. And our mobile device or a mobile application actually will work on your phone, the smartphone, even a tablet device. So any like an iPad, for example, the real estate's a little better on that. And so if you keep that in mind, a tablet type of situation is really common these days for field service workers, filling in data. And we can do all that through those smart forms in the web, fill out the smart forms and then upload them to a centralized office. All seems to work pretty good.
Okay, great. Another one for me, with your product having a very nice heritage and history and being a solid product over all the years, now that you've grown up and you have a lot of customers with a lot of history over the years, are you seeing any type of documented workflows of how people are saving documents and for how long and how they save it and how they handle their archiving and retention process?
Yeah, so a lot of the times it comes down to what's required from a tax basis and from auditors. I think 7 years is the typical retention process for documents, and we do have tools that obviously, the repository is going to be able to store those. We can set up roles based on when the documents came into DocLink, so we know how long they've been there. We have a tool called the Download Manager, so we can expunge documents and their data after 7 years. So we don't have to necessarily keep everything under the sun for centuries, for example, and take up space. So we can purge those out on a regular schedule.
Okay. Are your customers surprising you with any ways of how they're attacking that retention question of? Or I guess what I'm saying directly, are they being clever with some of the ways that they look at retention?
Retention as far as just keeping documents over a certain amount of time and then purging them?
Yeah, I mean, is there any clever tricks that they're using to get rid of things? I know a lot of our clients that are on the phone and not on the phone, from an accounting standpoint, we tend to start saving too many things and never really getting a good process in place to get rid of it. And I didn't know if any of your customers have gotten a better process in place to make certain they get rid of things instead of just constantly sitting on things and letting them grow.
Yeah, I mean, I guess with the managing the documents, you can certainly let it grow, and that's really not that big of a problem these days. Drive space is really cheap, so a couple terabytes would get you probably 100 years worth of documents and data if you really wanted to. But I still think there's a need to keep it in order so that beast doesn't grow. And then between property filtering down based on when the document came into the system, we can then attack it. Say, if it came in 2000, we can then say this is the retention date on the document, and we can set up some cool automation to then bring those documents to the forefront so we know then, hey, these are ready for purge. We can set up some saved searches to say, this is within that, this is over that 7-year time frame. It's time for purge. Set up a search to be able to do that, find those documents, and then use that download manager to get rid of them.
Okay. All right. Just two more questions. Some of our clients use a purchase order module besides just doing AP invoices. Any best practices that you see of how people integrate your product through the purchase order process and bringing it to invoice?
Yeah, so it kind of depends. If it's a 2-way match versus 3-way match, then I'm not sure about best practices. We can, from the start to finish, we can capture those purchase orders so they're digital from the beginning and then route those out to vendors, for example. When we receive a packing slip, we can enter those in. And then we can actually use OCR to do that 3-way match on those 2 documents. So, line item details from purchase order, packing slip, invoice, match all 3 documents via line item and make sure they all match to push through the system. We have integrations to all those ERPs that we talked about. So viewing documents, if you're in and live and breathe in the ERP, we can find a transaction, click on a View Docs button, and DocLink is going to go out into the repository, recall those documents through property values. There's really no need to attach a document to a transaction. That becomes very cumbersome. We want to take that process of attaching, paper clipping documents to transactions out of the equation, linking them via property values. So it could be an invoice with a linking PO number. It could be linked to a vendor, a purchase order itself. So lots of different documents, one property value. That's what I see as really good practice to do versus attaching all the documents to one transaction specifically.
Okay, great. And then the last question, and then we can wrap it up. With documents outside of the accounting flow, so not an AP invoice, for example, that I'm tracking because I need to pay an accounts payable invoice, but documents outside of the accounting flow. I know the product can track it. What are you seeing as the best way that people use the system to track those additional documents that aren't required for accounting flow, but they want to save them?
It really is simple. It's whether comes in a couple different ways, right? It could be maybe it's scanned in, and then we index that into the system. Once you get it in, the retrieving process to keep track of those becomes very easy. If you know something about that document, then you can search and retrieve based on a property value or a partial search of that value. Maybe it's a date range between year ago and 3 months time span from that point going forward. There's just lots of different ways to be able to search documents. Even for documents with properties that don't exist, we can find documents that way. So if we were missing a PO number on a document, we can still find that document based on different search criteria that we can set. And then full text inquiry allows us to then type in any word. I use the word agreement, could be contract, could be just a small word like the, and I can find the documents relating to that keyword search.
Okay, great. Great. I'll go ahead and start to wrap up then, and then Mark, if you have anything else that you want to add, just chime in. So to everybody on the call and everybody listening to the recording later, from a follow-up standpoint, you can follow up with anybody at Martin & Associates. You can follow up with myself. You can follow up with Rick, Jeff, Joe, Chris, etc., and we'll be more than happy to answer your questions about the product. We'll leverage Lauren and Mark a lot at the Alltech team for anything that's outside of our normal scope of knowledge, but we are here to help. So if you do have any follow-up questions, definitely reach out to us. And you can also reach out to Lauren and Mark directly as well if you need. Mark, anything else that you want to add?
Yeah, just a quick note. We talked about a lot of different stuff today. DocLink offers really a wide range of options to help you organize, secure, and process documents throughout the enterprise. Any document, any process, anywhere. We like to say that a lot. What's your next step? Is it a business process review? you need to determine ROIs. We can, fill out a survey to determine if it's worth the money for you. And we can set up a product demo so you can really see a live demo beyond what we've shown today to help you get more ideas of potential savings. Thank you for Martin Associates and the team. Kevin, thank you for hosting us today. We really appreciate your time.
Okay, great. Well, we'll give everybody about 10 minutes back into their day. Thank you for attending. And again, if you have any questions, follow up with us. Have a good afternoon. Bye.